global quality of life, which seems to be daily basis deteriorating as long as we have globalization continues. So we discussed that. What about development and continuing on to globalization makes the quality of life demolished, basically. So now our job is, where should we go from here? Ideally, in order to know where to go, we have to begin with a good, sound perception of visionary and the state of more desirable life situation. We have to define where we should be striving our journey of development away from conventional industrial, post-industrial globalization to something more desirable. That's what we will do from the remaining of this semester. We'll spend a dozen or so sessions to do just that, so that we will know at least where we should be going, how we should be steering the course of our management of life. So that's the remaining challenges for us. So now it's related to the visionary perception of global society, but today is quite important. Today and last few days and next few days in the Korean Peninsula, and as we speak, there are hundreds of South Koreans who came from North Korea. They're going to across the border to North Korea to get reunited with their long-lost family members. Long-lost, I mean 50, 60, 70 years long. So there are quite a few dispersed such family members because of uncontrollable social political environment. A lot of people moved to North Korea and beyond China during the Japanese occupation. That included Han Park's own grandparents, and went there, made a Korean community, 2 million strong, 2 million people strong, Northeast China. The 3 provinces of Northeast China, Jilin province, Heilongjiang province, Liaoning province. These 3 provinces were heavily resided by ethnic Korean people. And they got settled there, just like my grandparents. And they made their families. And many of them, more than 2 million people, are still living there. But I decided, with my immediate family, parents decided to come down to South Korea. That's where they originally came from before the Japanese colonial experience. And many people did that. As a result, many family members separated from their members of the family. Thus, many divided family members were created during the Japanese colonial and aftermath of Japan's surrender. And then followed by, as I said before, the Korean War. The Korean War was a massive dislocation for people. Whenever you have a conflict, you have family dislocation. That's universal throughout the history, even today. Family institution is the immediate victim of war, political conflict. That was what happened during the 3 long years of the Korean War, 1950 through 53. And during that Civil War, the front line changes many times, leaving many family members lose their relatives and family members. And then, of course, during the Korean War, as I said, and followed by the partition of the two governments and two political systems maintained by global order of Cold War politics. So we have had all these divided families unable to meet their relatives for decades. So today, there may be more, but estimated to be 600,000 dispersed family members. It used to have 1 million, but all the people passed away in the meantime. So every day we have older people are dying. So those people who are in transit right now to North Korea in the hope of meeting their relatives, that arrangement was made by the two governments. And they are quite old. First generation separated families, at least 70, 80 years of age. So they are quite frail, and many of them are very sick. But this 200-some members being transported are mostly quite senior people. They're going up there. Now, separate families. Think about that. Families. We don't know, living in the United States, what it's like having to live away from your immediate family members, against your will. The war situation, political arrangements beyond your control will make your lives miserable in that regard. So there are still, as I said, 600,000 individuals who believe they have relatives across the border in North Korea, and some in China, but mostly North Korea, and some between North Korea and the United States. So when I joined the university in 1970, I did, as a private scholar, concerted effort to help these separated family members find their relatives. So I organized a non-profit organization called the Uniting Families Inc., which is still active. Uniting Families Inc. The name is being revised now as Reuniting Families Inc. I did that with the help of former State Department Secretary Dean Rusk and others, and religious people here too, Martin Luther King friends included. So I was able to organize that, credited as the creator of the organization. I did have the organization. I did have tech shelter, humanitarian non-profit organization, but didn't have the money. It was so expensive to go to North Korea and turn up these people who believed to have family members separated across the border, which I did for a few years. I took my video camera back then in the 70s, in the 80s, early 80s. Video camera, we never had a small, nice video camera as we have today. It was really heavy, multiple pieces in order to take pictures. So I took the so-called Sony Betamax with attachments and all that, took to China and filmed those ethnic Korean people who believed that they had separate families in the South. And then I delivered the film to South Korean National Television, KBS, Korean Broadcasting System. And they welcomed it, they aired it regularly. It was so popular program because people were telling their life stories that made them separated, and they were looking for their relatives. They're describing who they are, how they look, how old they are, and so forth. As a result, hundreds of family members, lost family members, turned up and found their relatives. I got some award here and there, but that's not the point. So as a private citizen, a scholar in Deep South in the United States, I used my language and my context in China and North Korea. I went there, made a family reunion possible. Let me give you one, if time permits, a couple of episodes based on my personal experience. Think about it. There was one older man, maybe 80-some-year-old man in China, living by himself. He lost all his children and wife. He was looking for his family members. So I was introduced to him, and I had to bring my camera. I used my bicycles there in Northeast China. And I went to this old man's home. Home is a shed. It was underground shed, very poor. I went in there in dim light. I noticed an old man barely able to sit down and talk. So I interviewed him with my camera. And I was the interviewer, the producer, everything else, one man. So I produced these things that will be delivered to South Korean broadcasting system for public broadcast. And I asked him, this old man, very old man, I asked him, whom are you looking for? He said, my parents. He said, my parents. And I kind of, couldn't suppress this desire to ask this one. Your parents, chances are they're all diseased. The chances are you will not find them alive. He said, I don't care. No, even if my parents are dead, that's fine. I like to go and visit their gravesite. And at least that would give me relief, emotional relief, that I have had this unable to alleviate my agony and relief for decades. I like to go and meet my parents' bodies. That really made me wake up to the realization that family means something. Family defies life and death. What bonds a family is a unique kind of emotional attachment. Love, you might say. So that was one experience that made me realize that what bonded together families is more than just a convenience, just good feeling. It's a very deep, as you will see in interviews today and next couple of days. Those of you who understand the Korean language, you know how deeply they are affected by this experience. So this is something remarkable. Another my personal experience had to do with a newlywed lady whose husband left her after marriage within a matter of a couple of months, had to come to South Korea. They had the Korean War, and many Korean young men in China had to volunteer, quote unquote, to come to help North Korea, the Chinese. All these ethnic Koreans were legally Chinese, so they were mobilized or they were drafted to go to Korea. And this husband of this young bride and went to the war. And then that was the end of it. For 40-some years, they never communicated. For 40-some years. In the meantime, he didn't know that his wife was pregnant. And I met the older woman through the daughter. The daughter was mid-40 or early 40 years old. And her husband approached me to my hotel and described all this situation. The mother-in-law must meet her husband. So I found out all about his identities, his name, age, and where they're separated and all that. I came down to South Korea with the film, and it was aired along with so many other film strips that I produced. Many turned up. But now, the husband of this man was living in Canada. I found out later that he was a retired professor in South Korea, well-educated person. He came to South Korea and finished his education, became a university professor. In the meantime, he got married. He didn't know whether his wife is still alive or not. He was like a 22-year-old young man. He got married in South Korea without knowing anything like that. And then I found out that this man actually or his friend saw the film broadcasting and let him know, this looked like your wife. It's looking for you. And she was crying, looking at my camera, all that, the stories, you know. And then the professor who immigrated into Canada, no longer a South Korean resident, he called me and asked me, what should I do? In the meantime, I got married. I have 3 children, all grown-up grandchildren. I have established my successful family here. But I still feel very bad about my first wife. I never knew the existence of her. What should I do? And I said, let me think about it, and then I'll advise you what needs to be done. With that kind of culture, chances are, if the man appears with the truthful reality, factual news, then the wife would be devastated. But at the same time, I couldn't advise him not to reach out to the woman, the wife, So I decided to let them decide. So I told the husband of that daughter in China, 47-year-old daughter. The husband was a young man, very healthy young man, intellectually intelligent man. So I shared the information. Actually, this is what happened to your father-in-law. You want to share this information to your wife, to your mother-in-law. It's something you will decide. The family will decide. I didn't know. Still, I don't know. You know, telling the truth would destroy a family in terms of cultural bond, but not telling the truth is not acceptable. So that's what I did. And next summer, each summer, I went with my camera. The next summer, of course, we didn't have telephone, but I wrote him, I'm coming back. I'll see you. And then I went there. And I found out that he shared the truthful story to his wife and on to his mother-in-law. That caused certain death of the older woman. He stopped eating, stopped drinking for days and weeks. That caused her death. And that was something happened. So, you know, having your family is that important, more important than your own life itself. It is that context that we have to think about the merit of reuniting families. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was so wise to declare that the human race is one family and should be kept that way, should be managed that way. So what is it that family makes such a family bond like the way I portrayed it just now? You know, and I have been asked by media people. In fact, tonight I will be Skype interviewed by British and Asian television on this issue. What makes a family such a special institution? It's a special kind of love that is observed in these two episodes. It's not one male, one female biologically that are responsible for the reproduction or increase of number of people living on Earth. Yes, that kind of reproduction is very important, but that's not what family is unique about. Reproduction phenomena are happening all over the place. You don't have to have a family institution. But family bond is based on a special property of the family. That property is unconditional love. In fact, it begins with unconditional love. When youngsters get together and their love, affection, feeling ignited, unconditional love. But love will mature. Will mature in that as you live, there will be distractions, undesirable phenomena developing, in children not growing very well, not very smart, maybe physically handicapped, all kinds of things you will be seeing. Despite all these adversities, family love should linger on, and it will. That's what makes a family a unique institution. You lost your family members, you believe you lost for 60, 70 years. Still, you are missing them, you're longing for to meet. That's what we see in the Korean Peninsula right now. So it's not just a story from storybook, it's a reality. And your professor, I did try something tangibly and experienced the fact that family is a special institution. So when you have love bonded by the kind of mature love, unconditional love, that love will be even more matured to become a despite love, as I said before. If you think about reasons, there aren't very many good reasons to love. But you still love, you have all kinds of adversity problems. That is a despite love, not contractual or, to use my metaphor, because love. Because he has a degree, because he is rich, because he's handsome. All this because love. That's quite common in the world. The family love is despite love. Parents love their children despite all kinds of adversities and problems. They're not going to want to return their family, their children, to God. With all the challenges and adversarial problems, parents with that kind of love in their mind, in their hearts, would welcome the challenge with their children because love is powerful. That's the kind of love. When we say we need a global community, it's a family. For some reason, we have dispersed all these families, wars and all kinds of destructive devices by everyone else for the purpose of economic gain and so forth. But the future of humanity, one way of telling, at least telling me, is that we must find a way of reuniting dispersed family members in order for the society to maintain peaceful and to maintain mutually loving relationship. So with that, family is an important one. And family, like society, is quite important. We have to learn from the mechanisms of family how to develop political culture for more desirable polity. We have to do that. And if you do that, you will see a certain degree of collective management, certain degree of centralism, certain degree of authoritarianism. It's almost inevitable. Family is exceedingly authoritarian institution with father and parents important source of the authority. It's not the power, it's the authority, legitimate power, God-given power, if you will. So, with that, then, this is reuniting families. I wanted to convey some of these concepts to you, reuniting families. So our challenge is, we learn from, and we define what an ideal family, desirable family would look like, and then we try to learn from such a perception of a family to establish more desirable norms and values and beliefs in a political system. So I'm not suggesting that making a state like a family, like Kim Jong-un or his father, grandfather may have done. That's not the ideal. So we have to think about what would constitute ideal government that we learn from ideal family. Okay? Now, we'll go back to that. What would be ideal family? Now, going to the big picture, we said political development or economic development has been the problem, liability. Development led us to develop a set of values and cultures that are much more selfish-oriented, calculation-oriented, winning-oriented, and eventually subsumed ourselves to the slavery by money. I introduced the notion of moneyocracy. When money talks, we all become paralyzed. We have become like that. So it takes a generation. I don't think that people of my age can change easily. But young people like you, energetic, intelligent young people like you, can offer a new course of history. In a way, you think yourself as lost generation. Lost generation meaning previous generation messed up. You have nothing to learn from them. They may teach you, but they might not guide you. You find your role models. We don't seem to have many role models. You have to cultivate in you by yourselves. So there, our challenge is there. What should be the visionary goal of society? What do we expect from society? There, instead of development, I'm now introducing dignity. Human development, from development of economy, development of institutions, development of mechanisms by which making more resources, monies, development that translates to power in controlling others. Get away all from that, because there's no future. Development will annihilate us all, maybe beginning with us. So we need to look at something. And that's something, in my view, you will hear several sessions from now, human dignity. Remember, we began by defining development in terms of need, want, satisfaction. Remember, need, want, satisfaction, especially when it comes to the desire, the want to be better than others, control others. Thus, relationship should be zero-sum relationship. That made us what we are, killing one another, winning competition by making others weak and deprived, pushing others into the corners of structural violence. That's what we have done. We young people like you must realize what went wrong. What went wrong is very clearly the way we oriented ourselves in the name of development. That's what went wrong. So instead of pursuing human desires, human wants, even human needs, we need to pursue human dignity. Human dignity. Human dignity is a concept so common, universally common, that no one will deny the centrality of human dignity is a desirable value. We all want to be dignified. But we haven't studied that much. I haven't seen scholars digging down the perception of dignity and the conditions and the roadmap to enhance dignity. Dignity comes when we have all kinds of, to the fullest possible, human rights. Human rights. We hear human rights too casually. Human rights make humans dignified. Human dignity is there. Human dignity is relative. I cannot be dignified independent of others. It's so important that my value accepted and appraised by others and recognized. And my existence is by the value identity that I have, if others accept as being important for everyone, then my life will be dignified. As a professor, think about it. You have many professors you have come to contact. If you look at professors in terms of dignified professors, as opposed to intelligent professors, accomplished professors, awarded professors, good-looking professors, all that. Dignity. Dignity comes from rights, human rights. Okay? So it's so important for us to identify those rights that make us dignified and try to promote each and every of those rights. That's what human rights study. It's not election voting, and that is what human rights is about. I mean, it can be, but it's very limited. The totality of human rights, we have to insist, and we have to be students of human rights. Human rights always used in plural. Human rights, plural. There is more than one right. The right to vote is not what human right is. Everything about it about. There are different kinds of human rights. Equality, it may be, is equality a right? Some ideology would suggest it. I don't think so. Equality is not a right. But it's a very nice human condition to maintain esteemed life. There are 4 human rights. I want you to know each of these 4 very well. First, let me identify these, and then we take one by one. We have to have conceptions of these rights, and we have to know roadmap, how to approach, realize each of these rights. In order to do that, what do we need to do collectively or individually? I think education has a lot to do with it. And then, what kind of education do we need to have? We'll discuss it very straightforwardly and intimately. There may be 100 plus students, but we'll have a very personal discussion as needed. Human rights. before we talk about each of these rights, we have to realize that there are three principles of human rights. Three principles. These rights are founded on these three principles. I want you to, in addition to kinds of rights which we'll be discussing, but the foundational principles. Number one, principle number one is universality. No exception. Everyone is entitled to it, to a right, if it is a human right. Being a human being is sufficient enough. No other condition. So as long as people are living, everyone has the right, if it is going to be a human right. It's universalism, universality. Human right is something that we enjoy and North Koreans denied. It's not right. Universality. Secondly, universality, and then born with. That's a kind of paraphrase of universality. But no one can take it away. Inalienability. That is our second principle. No one can take your right away. No government, no wise man, no teacher, no smart institution can take away that right from individuals. That inalienability is our second principle of human rights. Okay? Thirdly, human rights are entitlement. Entitlement. That is, you are entitled to it. Entitled. It's a collective concept. It's a reciprocal, obligatory concept. That is, when I say, I'm entitled to something, and if you agree with me, then you have the obligation to make sure that I pursue, I own that right. It's obligatory. If in fact everyone, a child is entitled to life, African, North Korea, regardless, if we believe as human rights believers, then we have to assume the responsibility, directly or indirectly, to make sure that every child lives. Childs get basic needs. It's obligatory. Human rights are mutual obligation. These three are very important principles on which human rights are developed and refined. Would you be able to spit out these three principles if I asked you in the final exam? Okay. Now, these three principles will house specific rights. There are, I said, the human rights are plural, right? Plural. What are they? You know, you have human rights experts and scholars and established people. I'm yet to find an authoritative definition of different types of human rights. Human rights. We heard of freedom to express our opinions through the choice of our preferences and leadership, election. That's the most well pronounced and advertised right. You also heard that the social right or economic right, of right to have a certain amount, certain kind of resources to survive. Socialists have advocated the social right or economic right, communists too. But we, this side, liberals, we almost entirely emphasize the choice right, the election, freedom. But we have to put together everything, grandeur scheme. Yes, we have, I call the economic social right the life right. The right to maintain physical existence, the life right. It's a universal. Everyone is entitled, everyone else is obligated to ensure that everyone lives. The life right. So that in the name of human rights, we should not be discriminating. Some people's lives are more important than others. Okay? The life right. After the life right, as even in our human need paradigm, life is not enough. We have to have a better life if we are going to be dignified as human beings. Dignity requires more than just a physical existence. Eating food, bananas, and having minimum shelter, that's not enough. So we all want to, not only want to, we all are eligible, entitled to a better life. Better life. Entitled to the right to search for better life. That's what better life is about. Now, you have very important physical existence should be complemented by social existence, that is dignity in the society, more directly identity. We have the right to identity for each of us, identity. Why do we go through this education? So that we can build a better, solid, stronger, more justifiable sense of identity for each of us. Then what is identity? Identity is a system of norms and values and beliefs. Han Park is not my identity. Old man is not bald, and it's not my identity is much more complicated. Some of you, as a result of this course, may know a little bit of Han Park's identity, values and norms and beliefs. What makes a family is not reproduction function of people. That's my identity, part of my identity. Special kind of love as the source of human bond. That's my Han Park's identity. Despite love is most admirable kind of love than even unconditional, let alone blind kind of love. That's Han Park's identity. No. social democracy is different from democratic socialist. That's Han Park's identity, clearly. So I want you to go and educate people who support Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, Sanders is not democratic socialist. Don't say that. In these Americas, United States, the moment a politician or public figure is defined as a socialist, that if you just successfully figure great, socialists cannot survive in the United States. There are different kinds of socialists, maybe democratic socialists, but still socialists is socialists. But what Bernie Sanders and Europeans in Denmark and all these people are advocating is social democracy, not democratic socialism. Social democracy. So we should be, in the United States, somewhat comfortable and somewhat flexible to accommodate, to reach out to somewhat alien concept, different kinds of democracies. Social democracy is the trend, global trend, inevitable. Our welfare system, universal health care, for example, it's all social democracy. It's not socialist. I want you to, that's Han Park's identity. Throughout this course, you will know this little scholar's identity. When you have identity, you have a social, political address. My physical address is, I don't know, 390 Wilson, my life circle in Athens, Georgia, 30605. But my social, political identity has nothing to do with my physical identity. So how do we get to know each other's identity? Only through communication. Only through communication. What we are doing here is we're engaging ourselves in limited but clearly communication. I'm communicating with you by showing you my identity, and you will develop your own identities. So you will have your social, political address. Without it, you cannot pretend to have dignity. So human dignity, if you have food, shelter, security, all measures of physical survival untenable, then you don't have that physical right, human dignity. You don't have that. But dignity requires social political identity. Dignity may not be agreed upon by everyone. Some of you may agree with my value system, others may not agree. That has nothing to do with the quality of Han Park's identity. Each of you, I want to develop your own identity, okay? So here you have physical survival and social identity as an important form of human rights. And then only then can we think about a very important form of human right. That is the choice right. We have the choice from alternatives. Not only from the existing alternatives, we have the right to explore new alternatives for us to make our choice from. That is quite important. Human history has been defined as a collective effort to avoid a slavery system of all kinds, which is a very good one. A slave is a slave if he or she doesn't have the right to choose. Slave is not necessarily dumber, poorer, weaker, less artistic, less scientific at all. A slave is a slave because a slave doesn't have the right to make a choice. Whereas the master will have the right to make a choice for the slaves to follow. So here you have the choice right, the common right to avoid slavery of sorts. That's a very important way of dignifying human existence, human dignity. So the choice right is so important to make human existence dignified, and that's why Democrats, small d, in the United States, we go outside the world in propagating participatory democracy. Participation is none other than choice making. What is being done in participation? Make your choice. So that is quite important. So we are emphasizing the centrality of election system. Throughout the world, we try to advocate it. Why? It is choice-making mechanism. And choice-making is what makes human beings more dignified and free them from enslavement. That's what the choice right, the freedom is about. As I said, that's merely one of the rights. So in order to facilitate the choice right, we have to know, number one, what are the alternatives? We have to know the alternatives. In the Republican Party, I don't think I'll be voting in the Republican primary. I just don't know who to vote in Republican primary situation because I cannot compare this guy with that guy with any consistency artistic. For that matter, I cannot compare the Democratic side too. If Joe Biden throws his hat in the ring, I may support him. I developed some personal awareness and a very decent man. But in order to know these alternatives, number one, we have to reach out and look for information about each of the alternatives. Information. And then we have to compare all these facts and information in order to make a rational choice. It's not a small thing. Education process must facilitate, must help students and children just that. If you ask professors, who do you support? Bernie Sanders or whatever, what is it? I forgot always his name. Don, Trump, yeah. Don Trump and then comparing Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, that's difficult. But comparison is what political action is all about. The expression of your preferences, your choice, is what political action is, what decision making is. So it's so important if students ask me, who do you support? Then I would ask some questions about the alternatives. But I'll never say, I don't know. Then you are forfeiting your chance to dignify your existence. So here you have human right, choice right. It's that important. So we have to know about them, education, information. You have to be able to compare consistently pluses and minuses. So we'll come to that, maybe a little more choice in it. And then finally, we have a right. It's all about reuniting families. Let's go back to the very beginning discussion of this session. The love right, the human rights literature, they don't discuss the love right. The fact that each of us has a right to love is most important, that would perfect human existence in terms of respect. A most respected person is one who experiences love. And that is a matter of, or should be a matter of human right. And if you say love right, then it's almost a church sermon. It's not in a classroom discussion. And it should be made a very serious intellectual classroom discussion topic. Love should become. As I said again, we should really know what constitutes what kind of love. There are different kinds of love. So look at Google or some places where people, experts, discuss about different typologies or types of love. That would be quite interesting. Yet better for you personally to figure out what kind of love is that, you know? And you can compare the expressions, the institutions of love over many generations. Your grandparents, your parents, your level, you'll find, you know? As I said again, I don't want to mislead you. I've been asked by a public exposure of my view about the gay lesbian marriage. As long as you have the elements, the property of love, unconditional love, and then with the room of going into maturing to become despite love, then that's perfect. That's what the foundation of family. If you have the foundation of family relationship, you've got a family. In my view, that's Han Park's, again, identity, ideological identity. It doesn't necessarily take a man and woman to make a family, but it takes a special kind of love that makes a family bond possible, without which human association cannot be called a family. So if we need a good family institution, regardless of physical characteristics of the people involved. You know? Then people ask me, but in fact my son has to ask me, you, Dad, you're liberal. Yeah, I mean, everyone knows I'm liberal. What do you think of gay, lesbian situation? You know, yeah, they can constitute family, because what makes family is the kind of love rather than physical characteristics. So yes, that you can have a man and a man making perfect kind of loving relationship, and should be accorded a status. of a family, then I don't know, that then as people ask me, you as a person, are you a believer of same-sex marriage? You know what? I say, I don't know. I've never experienced that. That doesn't mean I'm common or universal. I cannot empathize same-sex people's mutual emotion, the kind of loving feeling. I don't know. I like to know, but it's not coming to me. I don't know. So I have no authority to declare an objective position on that. But once I know, when I know in the future, I'll be better off. But right now, the fact that I don't know doesn't mean I defy the possibility of that kind of institution as a family. Did I make myself clear? You can swing at me, fine, if you don't like that. But so this hour we discussed family related because something happened in Korean Peninsula now, and it's related to our discussion of human dignity and human life and development. So we will go to different processes of how we go about each of these rights and institutions that we create for the purpose of engineering and promoting these human rights. We discuss all that. And as an educator, I will profess my principles, my dilemmas and frustrations with respect to the education experience that we see in the world of today.